wife and Jill, and my name is Duran Cloud, and we are starting a different leg of our journey called the new ministry of health, where God is what?
True.
Truth. And so you will not see a lot of professionalism, Jill. They won't see, when I say professionalism in terms of uh, scripted or anything of that nature, because our goal is to be here and share.
Sure.
And so, in us sharing, we believe that if we share our experience, and you remember I told you at one point, uh, as I was going through my situation, and if you don't know what my situation is, I was diagnosed with lung cancer about 4 years ago, maybe 4.5 years ago, and 5 years or 4 years prior to that, I had an aneurysm. And so I have had to deal with the healthcare system from since my mid 40s. And I remember the aneurysm, and the guy said, I don't understand. It just doesn't make sense for a guy your age and your condition to have an aneurysm. But that took me into the health verse. And when I say health verse, I say the health universe, because I had to learn to deal with life, deal with death, and we had to deal with humility in that season, because you had to do a lot of helping with me to help me to get through that moment. And so we're going to share, and our purpose of sharing is for you to know that we believe in what we're saying, and that we believe you deserve to know some truths that we will talk about that we learned the hard way, and how to circumvent those things. And we call it pay it forward. Why? Because every one of you will walk away with something. And you walk away with because the opportunity that has been given to me is such a phenomenal opportunity, because in the midst of where I was at my lowest and I was really searching, Jill, we got a call. And with that call, the whole trajectory of our life changed.
And that call was based on paying it forward.
Hmm.
Even that call, even the conversation um, was about paying it forward.
Hmm.
And I think that when we say pay it forward, or the picture that I like you to be able to get, is that for every person, whenever something happens and you know that you've been changed, then it's your responsibility
Right.
to pay it forward. It's your responsibility. And I'd like to break that word up, responsibility, to it's my ability to respond. So if, and the reason why that's a wonderful, Deron, concept to
Right.
me is because I don't have to give as much as you give. I just have to give as much as I receive. And it allows me to always be able to pay it forward, because me paying it forward has nothing to do with what anyone else has done. It
Right.
has everything to do with my experience and what changes happened to my life, and how I must keep that change in the earth
Right.
by paying it forward.
Right. And when I say we believe it, when you're saying it, I was just talking about my plight, but I forgot about your mother's plight with pancreatic cancer, and what we had to go through with her in that season, and what we learned, because we were thrown into a system that we had no
My
idea.
mother had a birthday party on December 5th.
Hmm.
By May 4th, I was burying her. There was nothing that I knew. Then 2 weeks later, my girlfriend, who was 50, then, I hadn't seen her, what's going on, then she passed. I picked her up from so much because I was consumed with my mother's situation. She didn't tell me what she was going through. And when she told me, she called me and told me, Jill, there's nothing they could do. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I hadn't seen her in about 30 days. And so I just asked, can I at least pick you up from the airport? And I went to pick her up from the airport. She was so thin. Why am I telling you this story? I picked her up on Thursday. He passed 4 days later. And that's when, so when Deron says we're kind of thrown into this healthcare, I went from not having really burying friends, people around me not being sick, to it just seeming to be happening back to back to back to back to back. And what we're going to talk about today is so important because you cannot control what happened, but you can be prepared not to lose your mind, not to lose your way, because things around you are happening. You know, in all of these conversations, these things, I didn't get sick. 2007, Deron had an aneurysm. 2013, that's when they found out you had, well, they kind of knew before then, not that you had cancer, but that there was something going on with your lungs in 2013, and then by 2017.
And let me just tell y'all, so let's just be honest.
And my mother passed in 2010. So
Right.
all of that.
No, then you
like
finish.
back
I don't
to
have
back
to
to
share.
back to back.
Right. You know, I was just going to share that when I knew for a year, but I had been through so much stress, and we had gone through so much stress, and I didn't want anybody to go through anything else because of me. Because of me, I decided, you know, I'm just going to keep this to myself. And I kept it to myself for a whole year until I entered into another stressful moment, and it was really stressful. And I was told by a very wise person who I didn't know, never talked to him again. He said, Mr. Clown, I would suggest you take care of your health and that you not deal with this drama. And out of that, I was able to go Cancer Center Treatments of America and find out all these different things that were happening. And so with that came an understanding that I was, one, glad that I had changed my health and my eating habits and all that prior to that in some ways. But it definitely showed me and showed us, Jill, that life happens.
It does. And that's why when you hear us say the new ministry of health where God is truth,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I asked myself, Jill, what's the difference from what you've been doing to now? Well, I've said, you know, sometimes we try to get to healing, we try to get to wellness by manufacturing things. And so what we find, and what I found by the time I'm in a room with someone who's saying, I'm terribly sick, and I'm saying, well, what happened? Well, I was trying to deal with it in these different ways, except for the truth.
Right.
And so this is why we're here to say, okay, because once you're able to deal with the truth, then you're going to look for solutions. If you tell yourself there is no problem, you're not going to open your mind up for solutions. And there are plenty of solutions out here, and especially from all kinds of cultures. Chinese medicines from India.
Haiti.
Say it again.
I said Haiti.
Haiti. You know, but these are the things that we've kind of forgotten about, what comes from the earth and how really,
Right.
all of this medication that we take is our synthetic medications, and then oftentimes derivatives of from something that actually came to the earth, and then somehow we became afraid of what came from the earth and more dependent and more trusting.
Right.
You know, and so what we're trying to do with you and all of us, because what do our tag say? You come first. With all of us, let's have the conversation and let's be the group of people that decide that we're going to be a little more open-minded about this healthcare system. But being informed, it starts with that, and that's what we're trying to do.
Right. And you went there. That's what's going next. So I'm going to go ahead and
Just
go with
go.
that. That's great. It's really good that you say that because being thrown in, we wanted to talk about pain. And I wanted to talk about pain from several different perspectives and stress and how it's stressful to be ill and trying to get well in this current healthcare system and based upon the information that we know. And so when we talk about pain, I'm just going to talk about pain, Jill, and I'm just going to jump right into what you said because I just want to pick up right where you left off. And so, Jill, when you said synthetic and you began to talk about uh, the earth, all I could think was medical food products is what I knew that I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice in having a say so in my healthcare and what I was going to do. And the entire time when I was in the hospital, no one asked me about my nutrition. No one asked me, what am I eating? I never even filled out a questionnaire on that. But because I read and I began to understand the healthcare system and plant-based food.
Right, that's how he lost weight. Well, I used to be 360, 380 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm mad now that I'm the, anyway, another story. I'm saying, how did this happen? But anyway,
Right.
but he ate raw. He really did. He ate raw food. And we all kind of went through something, but he stayed off. But yeah, we ate raw food. And I watched it happen. So I knew what he's demonstrated to me is that he could do it without the surgery.
Right.
People do what they have to do, so I'm not ragging on anybody who chose to get there by way of surgery. But he was determined to give it his best shot first before
Right.
he went to those kind of helps. And so that's where I was able to see that plant-based food, just how important it was and how it could really transform. And I'm late on this, as my girlfriend always says to me. She said, Jill, I'm always a little late to the party. And late on the thinking part of just how I didn't consider that when you went plant-based and you did all that, you never got addicted. You never got, that's the difference between, what we rely on, the synthetic medications we relied on. Because why am I saying it? Because I have a comparison now. When you in 2017, 18, when you went through your bout with brain cancer, and you did have a lot of pain, and they gave you opioids, then you began to say, I'm not taking this because I don't want to get addicted. You never said that on plant-based. You never concerned
Right.
yourself
And then let me say, and I at
with
this
the
point,
natural way.
yeah, and at this point, I'm saying I don't know what's going on with me, and I'm laying in the basement. I laid in the basement. How many months?
Six.
At least 6 months. I laid in the basement. And I would only get up to do what is absolutely necessary. And I kept going to the doctors, and they kept telling me, now they want to say it's psychosomatic, and they're saying, and I'm saying, no, no, no. And I said, something's happening. And then they wanted to give me all these meds, and I said, no, I saved those meds because I said one day I'm going to do the show and tell people you can't go through this. And I'm talking about reputable hospitals. Remember, I went to that one hospital and she had a time limit because I had to stop and say, hey, are you in a hurry? Well, you were 10 minutes late. I said, ma'am, I can barely walk. I needed assistance to walk. And so, and remember, she went through the thing, and then when she realized I was going to advocate for myself, She had to check in.
So when she realized you said, "Excuse me, ma'am, you seem to be too busy.
Right.
I'll just leave."
Hmm.
And
And she,
that's when she tried to give you
you
reasons
won't
that
be
you
able
needed
to
to
get
stay.
another appointment for
Yeah, I don't
another
want to scare
14 weeks.
somebody,
I said, well,
right?
I'm going to wait 14 weeks.
You know what's funny?
What?
She sent you that $25 account paid off.
Did she? I didn't see
I
it.
know because I paid it.
Right. And so now we're telling that story because what she prescribed me, when I looked at the side effects, what she said I had, I said, this ain't what I got. Side effects, and I just put side effects or side effects equals pain. Many of these pain drugs have a significant limitation because they are synthetic. You had no idea I was going to that, and so I'm glad you did that. They were synthetic, and synthetic may block the pain, but it also causes an erosion of the intestinal tract, impaired memory, and the damage to the kidneys and the liver. See, I understood because I began to read on heart disease. The reason I went raw is because I began to experience angina. As I was walking, I would feel a pain, and we would walk, and I'd have to hold my hands up.
I forgot you did. You
Yeah,
forgot
I
you.
had to hold my hands up to make it go away. And then I said, all right, what am I going to do? So I considered stomach surgeries and all that. And I said, I have to be, if I can come back from all this trauma I experienced, I must be able to come back from this. And so, sure enough, I went raw because I said, I made a declaration against macaroni and cheese. I remember when I did it. I remember when I did it, I said, that's it. I'm done. And I said, no more mac and cheese. I was sitting at my desk. I said, I'm done. I had taken some kind of thing on the internet that what's your real age
Based on your
based on your family history
and your
and
illnesses
your
and all
illness and all that. I said, uh-oh, I'm 76.
that.
When God is truth and you follow it, you have but no choice but to obey or do your own thing and suffer the
Right,
consequences.
and I really want you all to hear truth, not as a scary truth. Oh my God, I'm gonna find out how sick I am. I want you to hear it from the point where once you know it's there, that you'll actually do something about it. And I know for the longest time, Deron, I remember I'm not one of those people who like to go to the doctors. I don't like it. I don't like it, and thank God I have. When I do go, I come back without some whatever I done scared myself about before I got there. But anytime you go, and you already know this, anytime you go, if you catch certain things early, then it's just an illness. It really doesn't get into that disease stage, you know. And but we, and I say we, me included, just keep trying to wish something away. I don't feel any pain today. Ooh, then it must not be gone there. Maybe it was this, and we live like that. But when God becomes truth, when you see that as God, and I say this to people, Ron, when have you ever touched God? How do you know?
Uh, it broke me. I'm a strong man. It broke me. I remember the day it broke me. I was sitting in the middle of my couch, and I call it my John Q moment. I have yet to be able to go back and look at that movie since I saw it years ago. But because I'm a playwright and I remember things, I remember the position he was put in and where his wife was saying, do something, and he couldn't do anything. And his insurance and everything was messed up. And they told me that my medication was going to cost $14,000.
That was his part, not the total amount of the medication. A
And
month, I'm
a
sorry.
month,
Did we say a month?
a month. And because I want to finish where we are, I could cry because at that point, I said, God, I've given this my best. I know why people consider suicide. I'm a strong man. But I said, what am I going to do?
Right.
And then I ended up making a decision and told my sister, hey, listen, I'm going to have to choose quality of life. And I'm just going to go out fighting with medical food products. But outside of that, I'm going to choose to live my best life.
And if I could add this, Ron went from those bags full of prescription medication that they gave him, to bags full of supplements. And because you kept trying different things and then different combinations. And we'll talk about the importance of my medical records online, because it will help alleviate some of what you had to go through, because you had to do it by trial and error.
And it's good. And I learned that I didn't know that's what I was doing, but I had to become my own advocate. And I had to now decide that you got one shot to get your health right. And when it gets real tight, you really have to hear very clearly.
When you're sick, it is not the time to have to look under dressers and trying to figure out what place did you leave this. It's just, that's not the time for it, because you're already stressed out or being affected by the illness. And then if you're now trying to fight for medication, in his sense, trying to figure out we're not doctors, who wants to do guesswork? That's one of the scariest things. I think about Gerald Levert. I mean, you're talking to somebody who's in the prime of his life, as far as I'm concerned. And simply because he mixed two things that did not go well together, it had some kind of adverse effect. That's why once we get to it, and we will, that's why this My Medical Records Online will be so huge for us, because that's a small thing that had a big effect, not just on the person who passed, but you got family, children, lovers, and fans. I mean, a whole bunch of people were saddened by this great gift, simply because he wasn't informed. If he was informed, absolutely he wouldn't have done it.
Right.
He wouldn't have mixed, but he wasn't informed. And that's why we have to, why we're here, so you can be informed, we can take control over the parts of our lives that for all of our lives, we've never felt comfortable in believing that we can advocate for ourselves. We don't feel comfortable. And who wants to do WebMD? We get that wrong too. So we're trying to help you get to a place where you can do it, and you have doctors
Right.
who will help you through it. A concierge service.
Right.
Everybody likes a concierge. If you go to hotels, we love the concierge service.
I'm going to share my most recent experience. And this is why I've been so happy and had a lot of joy lately, because I was attributing, it got to a point that I had a flight and a half of stairs to get to the second floor in the house. And I was crawling on my hands and having to climb up the stairs by the end of the night. And in my mind, I was like, I didn't tell nobody. I said, the cancer is winning. And the medication is taking me down. And at some point, I'm so determined that I had to clean my closet, but I had to lay on my side and just do one thing at a time. And I was saying, I'm going to keep moving forward. And so we worked, got medication changed. I thought things got better. but I got depressed. And when I say depressed, because I understood the principles of depression, I knew what I was doing, but I couldn't stop it. And at one point, you looked at me and said, I don't know you. And I said, I don't know myself, because I couldn't figure out what was happening and I was losing myself.
Oh, really? I mean, it felt like I was in the house with a toddler. And, with toddler energy. And it was because, I mean, I know it now because he's been able through, and he'll tell the story about the decisions he's made and the solutions to his problem. But I thought that.
And let me just say, because I won't remember, I realized that I was talking to describe stuff because I couldn't recollect stuff. So I was talking by analogy because I couldn't recall the actual words, but I didn't even know that that's what I had adapted to.
Right. And then the depression, or the part with depression was that then you trying to, you know the words, but you can't find the word.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've experienced enough time where I'm trying to think of a word and I'm doing this. Well, just imagine that if that's you all the time. See, that catches me every blue moon. I remember the word also. I remember one time it was the word also. Also. Can't remember how to spell also. And I felt like I was, something weird was happening to me.
Right.
Well, that's how I'm able to say, if this is how you had to deal every day, that's enough to make you want to take some drugs.
Right. 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 And it breaks you. I'm going to do a play called Stig Leaf Mata, and the stigma that has to be broken on medical food products. But I was terrified. I was really terrified, and I realized we were going to have to tell this story. We were going to have to share this story. And I believe that that's why it feels so good to be able to have recollection. It feels so good to be able to have recall. And it feels so good to know that you can come back from this. And so, but I was still depressed. And when you are pursuing wellness, you have to experience convergence. And you have to pay attention to everything so that you can make the right decisions. And my sister had told me that her doctor friend was on a certain medication, a blood pressure medication, and it was making him depressed. I had not received that medication. And this man was top man. And I had never received that. And then I'm in the doctor's office and they just make a decision that they're going to switch the medication. And they say, well, it does the same thing. And I say, okay, cool. And that's what happens. And then I am now depressed for 7 months.
Now, we're thinking that the depression is the cancer medicine.
Yeah.
So we're thinking it's the brain cancer that is causing all of these moods. And so why is that important for me to say? Because just thinking that it was the brain cancer meant this. I had to adjust. I had to make an adjustment about what this was and what it was going to be. Because if it was the brain cancer, then I was going to have to live with something that was wearing me out. And, but I began to assess my reality, to say, Jill, this is your reality. How are you going to do this, what we call the new norm?
Right.
There's a new normal here. How are you going to do that? And so, I'll let you finish the story. So it was something.
Right.
It was something seeing that.
And when you're saying that, It was a lot of tension too. This health, when someone, a partner gets ill or a family member, the caregiver gets worn out too. And the caregiver has vowed to take care to death do part, your family member. But she was weak, and I still had to rely on her. And so by the time I totaled the car, driving, and short-term memory went, and boom, ran in. I'm standing behind the car. I think the traffic took off, ran into the back of the truck, darn near killed myself, came straight through the window. And I remember I called you, and on that medication, I was so anxious, and she was saying, calm down, Deron. And even the tow truck guy was saying, calm down. And that's when I said, this is so debilitating. And so then I go to the doctors and I say, wait a minute. I was on Bystolic when I came here. You all switched me to Metropolol. And I know they're both beta blockers. But the side effects for me I'm experiencing is what other people are experiencing. And what can I do to get back on that? So when you all hear and they hear us talking about the new ministry of health, there's a passion. I feel a righteous anger happening because that's when I learned it was cheaper than what I was on. And what I was on was the most expensive. And it was the best.